Do you have any advice for people who are starting consulting? What would be like a 3-item list that you could give to people?
So item number 1 is go to expertsexchange.com and look at my article on how much you should charge, or something to the effect of.
Your number 1 is a long list of other number 1s.
Well, no, it is actually
You're such a geek, man. You can't. No huge function. I'm looking for 1, 2, 3.
It's
too complicated to put in 1, 2, 3, huh?
How much you should charge as an IT consultant.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah.
And
so think about how much you're going to charge, right?
It basically breaks down to consider how much you're going to work, how much you'd like to make, what your expenses are.
Cost analysis, yeah.
Yeah. And
learn how to do a cost analysis. So it's not even this. It's not even how much to charge. It's learn cost analysis.
I wrote this thing, I think it was in 2009, and I don't know what the stats are on it now, but for a very long time it was a number 2 article on the site.
I can't spell. Right,
yeah. And it basically breaks down, and the short of it is, given what I consider to be reasonable numbers, and I think most people would too.
Okay.
In 2009, it came out to about $120 an hour.
Okay. But it's probably changed. Inflation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not to mention, it depends on what you're doing.
You don't have the same numbers. Don't do that. Don't do that yourself. But right, it's going to also be different depending on where you're working.
Your level of expertise.
Your level of expertise, your experience.
Yeah.
What kind of network you have. If you have a whole company of other consultants behind you, so you can, your responsiveness.
So,
which you kind of do.
A few years back, I was doing a little bit of work for another consultant who really wanted to hire me. It's like, I really want to stay independent.
Right.
And he had like 3 or 4 other technicians working for him, and he's like, look, join me, we'll make you a good deal, and because what I'm going to do, if I'm competing against you, I'm going to point out to the client that, hey, I've got multiple technicians who can help you out. Versus me, who, he's just the one guy.
Hey.
If he's got an emergency, he can't help you out.
Okay.
And my argument against that is, you know what, I'm the one guy, but I've also networked with about 20 other consultants, and if there's a problem and I can't make it to a client and it's a big deal, I'll call one of them up. They'll make it.
Okay.
Coverage is not an issue. I was in Iceland over the summer, and one of my clients had a problem. I called up another one of the consultants who I know worked nearby. Hey, can you go take care of him?
So maybe that's number 2, is build up a network of pinch hitters. So number 2 is network of pinch hitters.
You have to socialize with people, with other consultants. Look, if you're in the middle of nowhere in Iowa or Montana or some other place that there's no one around for 200 miles besides the 12 people in your little town, if you got 2 guys doing consulting work, it might be a little difficult to network with them because, one guy could easily steal your business and you don't have any business anymore. But in New York, at least, talk to people. There's so much business around. If you're a real scumbag, then you're going to steal somebody's client. Otherwise, you're just going to work with them. You're going to call them up when you're on vacation. They're going to call you up when they're on vacation. It's just network.
Okay. So we got 2 so far. So 1 is learn cost analysis. 2 is network pinch hitters. Network other consultants. Other consultants. So what's number 3? What's the one thing that people would not see coming?
Well, one thing I tell people to do is, and what I do for myself, everything you do for a client, bill it.
Bill everything.
Everything.
Awesome. Bill everything. Nice.
However, that does not mean that you charge them for everything.
I find this confusing. Explain.
So, if you're at a client and you're doing something and maybe you want to be nice, you want to do a nice little comp the client, so to speak, then offer a discount. Pick a day where you're there for an hour and just say, I was there for that hour, did this work, line right below that, discount, 1 hour's worth of work.
Okay. That's great. So you're offering them a sale.
And you're showing them that you're not necessarily charging them for everything.
Right.
You know, attorneys are known to like bill you for everything. Call them up and for 3 minutes and you get a bill. Well,
I always ask. I would say, what exactly am I being? How I got to say something in 1 minute, and then if you want, you can start charging me. You know.
And for the most part, that's like the one thing I don't really bill for is
Right.
phone calls.
Right.
If it's a quick phone call.
Yes.
If I hop on something remotely,
So in the salary world, 5 to 10 minutes. You know, if it's more than 10 minutes, I'm consulting.
well, I
I'm
mean,
consulting, or it's part of the job. It's overtime. You know.
yeah. And if, like, I don't like charging my regular clients for phone calls if it's just like, hey, you know, we're trying to do this, and I walk them through something on the phone.
Right.
Especially if maybe I'm sitting at home and at that particular hour not really doing anything.
Right.
Then, okay, you know, I'm not even going to list that. Or if I do list that, I list it and then I discount it to 0. Because it just makes people, in my opinion at least, it make me feel better when I look at a bill and I see, okay, well, I have these items, but you know what, it was zeroed out and that was zeroed out, so, okay, you know, it's nice to see that zero. The other thing, I kind of use that as leverage in a sense. It's rare that I've ever had to enforce it, but what I mean by leverage is like, look, you're going to pay me on time.
Right.
Because if you don't pay me on time, that discount is void.
Right. You were doing them a favor, and you're going to stop doing them a favor.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll do you a favor, you do me a favor. Pay me on time.
An alliance is 2 ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it. All right, so this is great. So I don't know if you meant to do this when you came on here, but we now have a 3-step list. Is there another one I'm missing? Do we need a 4th step?
Well, there's sort of a business model. And these days, the break-fix model.
Yeah. No. Service model, you see a monthly charge? Okay.
And there are various ways of doing that. I know one
So 4 is set up a service model.
One of the consultants I know will actually do kind of a hybrid where they charge a minimum monthly fee and then bill by the hour. So that's a consideration.
I mean, this is a big. So people may not realize, you know, like people don't think about the fact that I know you, so I know this, that you were. At one point, you were just another salaried worker, just like the rest of, you know, the bulk of IT. Not some are consultants, but a lot are salaried. So, and you made the jump into consulting, and you just figured it out. And I mean, I think that's really impressive. I don't know if someone else, but you know, sometimes people want to make that jump. So,
one of the points on the service model, and one of the arguments for it's considered to being a managed service provider.
Right.
And there's a bunch of different ones kind of related to that now, but. One of the ideas is you're paying a flat fee every month, and generally speaking, it's an all-you-can-eat kind of thing. Now, you may have certain asterisks, if you will, like I'm not going to replace every computer in your office 1 month and have it be covered by this all-you-can-eat fee.
Right.
But if you want to replace one a month over the course of 12 months, okay, maybe that'll include.
So there's an expected window of serviceability. Not I'm going to do everything for everything in the month, but maybe 10% of your infrastructure is serviceable in a month, or
is replaceable in a month,
8% or 8% or something.
But
like
you
that.
know, look, if you get infected by something and it was missed by our antivirus,
But how about blame? Is that part of the model too? I mean, do you ever blame yourself? You know, if you blow it, will you like if you?
Well, that's
obviously you don't blow it, because you're making this face like blow it. I do not understand this mistake you were speaking of.
That's sort of the MSP.
I mean, I
model.
believe it. You're pretty with it. So
that's sort of the MSP model, because if you think about motivations when it comes to being a consultant,
right?
If you're on the break-fix model,
right,
then if you do your job well.
Nothing ever breaks.
Nothing ever breaks. When are you making
punished
money?
for doing a good job.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing with system administrators and system engineers. Their job is to replace themselves, and programmers even sometimes.
But not even just that. But if you're less scrupulous, and like every consultant I know these days has some form of remote access tool for their clients, because they need to be able to take care of a problem whenever and wherever.
Your glass fell over.
Kind of.
Yeah, no.
No, look, it's been a slow month.
And by the way,
let me remote into that machine.
If I ever caught someone doing that on either in my business as a consultant, either working with me or working for my client, or I would totally fire their ass.
Absolutely.
But lying, that's the problem, because you have to trust the people you work with.
Yep.
You got to trust your team, or you're just screwed.
But so, if you're on the break-fix model, then at the very least, there is an arguable incentive to cause harm or prolong the work.
Right. Oh, I've never seen that.
Whereas, if you're on the managed service providers model,
God, you'd think it was like 1970s Chicago's unions out there sometimes in some of the places I've worked. Just like people dragging their feet and like, I don't want to do. And it makes it, and it's bad. It's you have to want to be motivated, because people just they drag you down, and you're like, all right, well, I'm just going to take this slow because everyone else is, and I can't do anything without this, this thing from guy A and this thing from woman B and this guy thing from guy C. So I'm just going to take my time too, and it's infectious. That's what DevOps is really about, and now SRE.
Well,
getting away from that.
If you're on the managed service model, then you're incentivized to make the system as stable and reliable as possible.
Right.
Because let's say you bill a client $1,000 a month to keep their systems running. If you can keep their systems running by spending 2 hours a month, you've made $500 an hour. But if you screw up and it takes you 40 hours, you've made $25 an hour.
You've gotten the Mickey Mouse salary you deserved.
Not to mention that the client has been unable to work for 40 hours,
right?
Presumably.
Well, the thing that's tough about that is then you have to learn how to say no to your client.
Yeah.
You have to get to the point where you can go, you want me to do that, but that's crazy, and I'm not going to do that.
The managed service model is something that you really need to look at, and there's several books on, but there's so many ways that you can do it, and you do have to be a little careful. And there's potential for client abuse. I pay you a flat fee. I want you to be here to show me why Word isn't printing properly. You put in certain restrictions.
Is 4 going to be enough, or do I need a bigger board? Is this enough to get someone started?
I think those are the big things to be aware of.
So this is the list. Number 1, learn cost analysis, or how much to charge. Number 2, network pinch hitters or other consultants. Number 3, bill everything. And number 4, set up a service model or a managed service model.
Yeah, you cannot be a god of the topic. If you think about how you pay.
Go on.
If you think about how you pay an attorney.
Right.
You need an attorney to defend you in court or to sue somebody, whatever the case is.
Right.
They do not guarantee a win. And
well, there is a system where they do everything that's possible, which is retainer.
Yeah.
But it ain't cheap, and maybe you don't want that.
But they don't guarantee you wins.
Right.
No matter what.
Right. True.
And what you're basically paying the attorney for is their knowledge and knowing where to look.
Yes. At least knowing the knowns and knowing the known unknowns. Yeah.
In essence.
Yeah.
And
knowing where to look, and that's one of the things I was complimenting you earlier on that you're really good at. And I try to be good at that too, even if I don't know what something is. I try to have a network of people, some of which you're meeting now, that I can call on and say, help me, I don't know what to do.
I'm probably butchering the example, but I think another one of the consultants I know tells a story about going into a place. I don't think this has actually happened. I think it's more of an anecdote, but going into a place that they've said, hey, there's a problem with my server.
Right.
Walks in, looks at the server, pushes a button, and now everything works, and he leaves. Sends him a bill for $200. And the client calls up, you were here for 30 seconds. Give me a bill for $200? Well, I knew what button to push.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know? If it were that easy.
I have a perfect anecdote about that. So like I mentioned before, there's a cartoon up now for the channel. So this is actually kind of a cool story. It's an open source program called OpenTunes, and it just open sourced in 2016. So I had to teach myself this app, and it took me a week to make a 45-second cartoon, but the next cartoon will be 2 days. Those first 3 days of work, we're just learning it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, $200 is cheap compared to that. I get paid a lot an hour, So if I were doing this as a job for someone, it would have cost so much, So yeah, you're absolutely right. That was a great story. Thanks a lot for telling. And I think this list will help a lot of people.
Let's go back to that list and add a number 5.
Okay. Oh, a number 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
This I think is actually kind of important.
All right. See, now I need another board. Give me your board.
When I
Is it the 0th rule? Should it be number 0? No. Go ahead.
Maybe.
All right.
When I first started consulting, I had the perspective that people are hiring me to know the answer and fix the problem.
Right.
And going back to the attorney route, no, you don't. You can't. Maybe you know where to look. If Windows is crashing,
right,
you can look at why it's crashing. Maybe you can figure out why it's crashing, but maybe you can't.
So it's
how
more
much
about
time,
solving the problem than knowing the answer.
It's about getting the customer working again.
Solve the problem.
It was, I could spend 8, 10, 12, 16 hours going over a particular issue trying to figure out why is this happening. But you can't bill the client for that. So at some point, and I'll tell you, when you're doing consulting work, it's got to be earlier than later. At some point, you have to look at that and say, look, is it reasonable for me to believe that I'm going to be able to fix this problem in the case of Windows, say, hour to 2 hours? Or, depending where the problem is, would it make more sense for me to just wipe the machine and reload it?
I'm kidding. I didn't really snap it.
Maybe that's empty.
Number 6, don't sniff markers. Sorry.
That's
a stick.
You need to be able to tell the client, look, I can keep working on this, but I don't know that I'm going to solve this quickly.
Right.
And I have to bill you for it.
Right. Is this a fair assessment of this? Solve the problem over knowing the answer. Yeah, solving the problem is your priority.
Yeah.
All right, so that's number 5.